Good evening, everybody. My name is Gina Duvernay, and I'm the Adult Services Manager for Gwinnett County Public Library. Thank you all for joining us. This evening's author talk is supported in part by the Gwinnett Creativity Fund and the Georgia Council for the Arts through the appropriations of the Georgia General Assembly. Georgia Council for the Arts also receives support from its partner agency, the National Endowment for the Arts. We are happy to partner with the Bookseller, a Black-owned bookstore located in gorgeous Conyers. It's a nice, welcoming bookstore. If you have not been there, it's worth the journey. No, I'm kidding. It's worth the drive. Moderating tonight's talk is Renee Hicks. Renee is a book lover and influencer who has fostered community in the literary space for nearly 8 years. She founded Book Girl Magic, a virtual book club dedicated to celebrating and uplifting Black women authors. What began as her personal mission to spotlight underrepresented voices has grown into a global movement encouraging readers to explore stories beyond their own experiences. With a heart for connection, Renee uses the magic of books to spark dialogue and highlight our shared humanity. Renee will be in conversation with this evening's featured author, who we are thrilled to host, the one, the only, Ibi Zoboi. Ibi is the New York Times bestselling author of books for children and teens, including American Street, which is located there, Pride, a modern remix of Jane Austen's Pride and Prejudice, and Punching the Air, co-written with exonerated five-member Yusef Salaam. Ibi is a two-time Coretta Scott King Award honoree and the winner of the 2024 CSK Award for Nigeria Jones, also located over there. As an educator, she facilitates community-based programs for teen girls in both Brooklyn and Haiti. Born in Port-au-Prince and raised in New York City, she lives in New Jersey with her family. Let's give them both a round of applause.
Thank you. So excited to be here with you, Ibi. This is Gwinnett County is home for me, so it's a full circle moment. And as I was telling Ibi earlier today, I've been an influencer for almost 8 years now, and she was one of the first to come on my blog and answer questions and stuff. So this is truly a full circle moment for me. So thank you all for being here and celebrating the 250th birthday anniversary of Jane Austen. So that's really cool too. So first, we'll go ahead and dive in and talk about your book, Pride, which was absolutely amazing. But for anybody who's new to Pride and may not have read it, can you give a quick overview of the story?
Thank you. Hey, Gwinnett County. Thank you for having me. I'm a long way from home, but I called Atlanta home for 3 whole months. I lived in Stone Mountain, near Trevitt Drive. I remember that. I like Brooklyn more. So I left Brooklyn, came to Georgia, went back to Brooklyn, and this is where Pride is set. In a neighborhood called Bushwick. If you know, there was an HBO series called Girls with Lena Dunham, and it was set in Bushwick, but that Bushwick was different from the Bushwick that I grew up in, and different from a lot of other corners in Bushwick that are not represented in the show. So if you're familiar with Jane Austen's Pride and Prejudice, which is about just a little, if you didn't read Pride and Prejudice and you know about Bridgerton, it's Bridgerton vibes with the whole girls or young women trying to move up in society, and the only way to do that is to marry a fine gentleman. And this is Lizzie Bennet's story, and she meets Mr. Darcy, a wealthy man, but it's a love-hate kind of thing until she finds out they have things in common. So I am not from 1813 London, and Pride and Prejudice is assigned to a lot of high schoolers. And my question was, what many high schoolers can't relate to Lizzie Bennet in 1813. What if we take those classics and remix them and keep some of those same beats and tell a different story, same story, different characters, different situations, because those classics are classics because there are universal truths, as the first line in Pride and Prejudice goes. It's a universe. It's been so long. What's that first line? It's I know the line. You know what? I published like 8 books after this one. It's a truth universally acknowledged that, and it's a different. I remixed it here, and it's a different line in Pride and Prejudice. But the idea is that there are some universal truths in the classics. But what if we remix it so that the characters look like us, look like the children who are reading it, and provides a window for children who don't look like the characters in this book. So essentially in my remix, there's a character named Zuri who lives with her 4 sisters. One is away at college, and her parents in kind of a large 1-bedroom apartment. They are working class or lower class, as many people are in certain neighborhoods. But the way to move up in the world is not through marriage in 2020 something, it's through education. Zuri wants to go to Howard University, but there's the cost, there's the school system is not great, and she doesn't have the money. And across the street, there's a brownstone being renovated. Usually in parts of Brooklyn, the brownstones can be 3 or 4 families, so it's divided up into 3 different floors. But the brownstone is renovated to fit one whole family. So this is gentrification. So she thinks it's a white family moving across the street. Of course, who's going to put all that money into a brownstone? But in comes a fancy car, and out comes the most beautiful Black family she has ever seen. Parents and 2 of their sons, and they are fine. Yeah. And and she can't stand them because they rich, but they're fine, so hence starts the dilemma, the classism. I really wanted to write about classism in the same way that Jane Austen wrote about classism in 1813 London. Said a lot.
Yeah,
I hope I didn't answer
no.
questions that you had.
You might have, but it's okay. And I love how you incorporated college into this. Like, to me, that was such an important piece. And I work in the financial aid industry, so seeing the importance of college and even the steps of what needs to be done and taking college visits, I thought that was awesome that you did that. So you talked a little bit about the need for a book like this with this generation to kind of relate and understand. What initially sparked that idea to say, hey, I want to remix this book?
So it didn't start with, hey, I want to remix this book. So my first book was American Street, and it's a heavy book. It's all the things that are happening now. It published in 2017, and it touches on all the things that are happening in our country now regards to immigration. And it features a Haitian immigrant girl who was born here but left Haiti, but her mother is taken at the airport as an undocumented person arriving to this country. And it ends tragically, but with hope. And I did not want to write another tragic book. And it was that era, it was a time of just social justice books with The Hate You Give and Dear Martin. So it was that sort of vibe in that time. And I was like, I just want to move away from that and write a romance. And I really wanted my second book to be a romance. And with publishing, when something does really well, they want to follow up with something very similar. And I am a contrarian, so I'm like, no, I want to go the opposite.
Yeah.
I want a love story where nobody dies. And there is no social justice. There is social justice themes, but not in the way that people's lives are at stake, really, not their bodies at least. So it was hard to sell a romance without a big hook.
Yeah.
And it's just 2 kids from the hood, one is wealthier than the other, falling in love. And there wasn't anything, my publishers wanted something that would have a hook. And this is before the romance boom. Right now, there is a romance boom. Everybody's reading people falling in love because we want that. And the environment was different in 2017. Yeah. So the hook would be, hey, why don't you remix? It was just an idea and the word remix didn't come up until much later on. A retelling of a classic romance story. And I was like, there you go. Yeah. I want to say something, but make it a love story too. So Pride and Prejudice says something about a woman's place and intellect and the haves and haves nots. So it's not just a fluffy romance, which are great too. But I got to say something about, just those first loves, and say something political about classism and gentrification and who gets to move up in society. So it was because it came out in 2018. So we were thinking about the idea maybe 2016. And it was a very different time, even though it was just a few years ago. It's almost 10 years ago. Romance wasn't a thing, and we needed to have a hook to the romance.
Yeah, love that. So I do want to talk a little bit about the audio narration. That's how I like to listen to books. And if you have not listened to it or you're open to reading it again, definitely check out the audio narration. The whole time that I was listening to it, I was like, this is so, like, I could see this person in New York. Like, it was so New York, the way that they spoke and just everything about it. It was just felt like New York to me. And so I get to the end of the audiobook and it's like, this book is narrated by Elizabeth Acevedo. And I was like, my mind just went like this because I couldn't believe. I mean, if you guys are fans of Elizabeth, the Poet X is amazing. The way she reads the poetry in that. So to have her reading the poetry in this, it was just amazing. It was mind blowing to me. I was like in shock that that's who was reading it because it was perfection. But how did you come to get her to read?
Oh my God, that is such a blessing. So I do know Elizabeth Acevedo, and right on the heels of the Poet X, I'm so glad she said yes, because it was hard to find that New York accent. I know we in Georgia, but there's a New York accent. And for anybody who's not from New York, it can read a certain way. And I knew that there are people who are going to look down on the way Zuri talks, especially when it's written on the page. And there are readers who will think that it's subpar, that the English is not written in vernacular or anything, but there is a little attitude, a New York attitude to the way she speaks and how she sees the world. And unless you hear that, you won't make those connections.
Right.
So I've written different kinds of books. I can do highbrow literary, and I could do the way our kids speak. But unfortunately, many people will assign quality to the way to the way that our children speak, and to the way that I write the way the children speak. So I needed somebody with that attitude, that New York flavor.
Yes, that's
So that Zuri's way of seeing the world and how she sounds is authentic. So Elizabeth Acevedo as a spoken word poet was perfect.
Yeah.
So I'm so glad she says yes, and I'm so glad people are discovering the pride through her voice. And again, you read it a certain way and you think this is poorly written. Not you, not anybody in this room.
Right.
Others may think that it's poorly written, but then when you hear how Zuri is supposed to sound, how could you say that? Because this is authentic to where she lives. And when I did, when this first came out, I do a lot of school visits, and I tell young people that in New York, there are, in certain neighborhoods, you could be 15 and 16 and still not have gone to Manhattan. In the same way that there may be kids in different parts of Georgia who may not have been to Atlanta. You have to think about, parents working or they're going to school. Certain places my character had not ventured to. So her stepping outside of her neighborhood was huge. So that affects and impacts the way she sounds and how she sees the world.
Yeah, it was perfection. So check that out if y'all haven't already. The title itself, Pride, feels layered, touching identity, culture, and class. And maybe the answers are the same, but what does the word pride mean to you personally and for Zuri's story?
Oh, yeah. So we didn't know how to what to call this book.
Yeah.
We just knew that, okay, this is a Pride and Prejudice retelling. Excuse me. So it was, I'm going to tell y'all a little secret. It's going to be on camera too. So because it was 2016, 2015, because the book, you got to be done with it a year before it comes out. So I'm with my editor and other people just getting some feedback on what the title should be. So it was Pride. We came up with Pride, but the subtitle was Pride and Prejudice Gets Woke. That would not have aged well, right?
No.
So, we didn't want to say a Pride and Prejudice retelling because, they're trying, they, in their limited point of view, they're trying to make it sound a little urban. And I'm like, no. And this is before woke became a thing, the thing that it is now. And I'm like, I just knew this is not going to land. And just, it took me a while to come up with Pride and Prejudice, a remix. And now other people are using remix. And I had to explain, well, this is what remixes do, with a song, you add the flavors there. Maybe the beat is different. Maybe there's, you put the rapper in there or something like that. It's something new, but the flavor is still there. So it wasn't so much the word pride. Like pride is self-explanatory. There's pride in your neighborhood, pride with who you are and where you come from. And this is true for Zuri as it is for Darius and all the kids in this story. But it's the remix part that is important to me, in that this is not a retelling. This is a remix, and I'm adding different flavors to it that was not in the book in the same way. And when I do school visits, you know how TikTokers are doing that now, where like they know a song, but I have them listen to the original and say, okay, what's in this original that's not in the remix? And if I were to do a school visit now, I'd use Kendrick Lamar.
Luther? Luther? Or no?
No,
Something
not
else.
like maybe Luther.
Oh, yeah.
And I'd use Debbie, If I Hear Music, that.
Oh, the beat, yeah.
Yeah. I'm from the 80s.
Yeah.
I heard it immediately. I was like, oh, that's so I had my son listen to it.
Yeah.
But, the it's not the same, but there's a little piece of the original that's added, and then you add your own flavor to it.
It's amazing. Awesome. When you first started Pride, did you write to set out a retelling, or did it naturally, well, I guess you already kind of mentioned this, but when you sat down to write it, did you have in mind exactly what pieces of Pride and Prejudice that you wanted in there, or did it just kind of come as you were writing it?
Oh, that was hard. It was very hard to tell a true story of the character in the hood. And like, okay, this is London. What am I keeping and what's her goal? It took a while to figure out what should be, what are her desires? Because Lizzie Bennet, she wants to be an independent woman in 1813, right? But she's stuck to this idea of, you have to marry. And in what ways is my 16-year-old wanting to be independent? And what is confining her? And it's hard to think about teenagers now. What's holding them back? Because you would think like it's not 1813. You're not a suffragette. It's not slavery times. What is holding you back? And I had to sit with that for a moment. And I said, okay, poverty. It is access to resources. These are all the things that's holding her back. And does she recognize it at 16 years old? And how do I show it instead of telling it? So I really needed to not have her like downtrodden and sad, because she's prideful. She has pride, but how do I show somebody who's confident and is sure about her place in the world while also showing all the things that are holding her back? So that was the writing process to me. It wasn't the actual getting the words down or the story. It's figuring out the needs and wants. And that's important for any writer going into a story. What are your characters' needs and wants? And that's what will drive the story, move the story forward.
Yeah. And as you mentioned, Zuri she's bold, grounded, and deeply tied to her community. She stands 10 toes down for her community. Are there parts of her personality that reflect how you were at that age?
Oh, absolutely. She's judgmental. She's very judgmental. And so, maybe you'll find her annoying, not you, but these are all like over the years, like you don't go looking for feedback, but somehow it makes its way to you. And there are a confident girl who doesn't have a lot of resources can be unlikable too for some readers for whatever reason.
Yep.
And I think many readers may find her more appealing if she was sad, but she's not sad, and I think some readers would think, well, you're poor. You're living in a 1-bedroom apartment.
Yeah.
Like with all these family members, why aren't you sad and crying?
Yeah.
No, because there are communities like that. There are households like that who have pride with very little.
Yeah.
And her parents are together. Her parents love each other.
Yeah.
They're in a tight bedroom, but she don't mind being up under her sisters.
Yeah.
They argue. They love each other. That's what I remember about my neighborhood in Bushwick, in different neighborhoods in New York City. And I'm sure this is the same for Georgia, where just because you don't have much, just because whatever is going on in the world, people are suffering, doesn't mean that you can have a bit of happiness in your corner of home.
Make the best of it.
What was the question? Okay.
So I asked if you saw bits of yourself in her.
So that is my,
At that age.
This is myself at that age where there were hard things happening.
Yeah.
But once I, locked myself up in my room, like there was so much joy with my radio. Right back then we had radio stations.
Same, yeah.
And my video music box, this is a New York video music box was something that came on. Like I didn't have MTV, so waiting for the music video box to come on, music, dancing, hairstyles, fashion, joy, and then extremely judgmental about everybody else because you're 16. She's 16. She's judgmental about the kids moving across the street.
Yeah.
Because she's protective of her neighborhood. She's seeing people coming in and changing things. And she does not like them because of that. Like, how dare you have a whole brownstone to yourself? So all of that rolls into, it's not her being mean. It's her being protective and
her
passionate.
community and stuff too, and her family. And it's funny you mentioned her being judgmental because she thought Darius was being judgmental, but it's like, you are too. Like there were parts of him where she was mad. You're thinking my sister is one way and not good enough for your brother. And it's just like, you're the same way.
Yeah. Lots of judgment.
Yes, for sure. Zuri's poetry gives us a window into her soul. Why did you choose to weave poetry throughout the book?
I needed her to have something that she's passionate about. And this is reflective of all the young people that I work with. They were like, when you get to listen to young people, there's some young people here. There's always something that they're passionate about, whether it's drawing, whether it's singing, whether it's poetry that they don't share with other people. Little things like knowing how to do nails, being good at edges or whatever, there's something.
I'm laughing. That's my twin. My twins are right there. So her edges, if you can see.
Yeah. And then you do it for your friends too who can't do it. There's
queen,
always a talent. And I always want to highlight the talents that young people have. In all my books, there's something that gives them value, that they value and that, makes them valuable for the reader.
Yeah, it was beautiful. It was like perfectly inserted each part in there. I think that was one of my favorite parts was reading the poetry.
I love poetry. Like if it's a novel, like I'm going to insert some poetry in there or something.
Do you write yourself? Like, do you write your own poetry outside of your books?
Yeah, that's how I started writing.
It's poetry.
As a young person, I did spoken word.
That's awesome. It was great to incorporate that. So Darius Darcy is both familiar and fresh. What was the biggest challenge in making him believable as a modern Mr. Darcy?
Oh, wow. So my daughter went to private school on scholarship.
Okay.
And I remember while writing it, she was in high school and just paying attention to the boys in her school, there is an air of confidence, if they're not jocks, if they're highly intelligent, you can't tell a 17-year-old with straight A's that they're not the ish, So there is, like, I had to take a look at that confident young man who other girls find attractive. And I remember them from when I was in high school, that they think they know everything, and I have a teenager now too. So it is remembering the young men that I went to high school with, my little old boyfriend, and just watching young people. The whole thing about writing for young people is to remember myself. Like, I think the teenagers now are not different from the teenagers in the 90s or the early 2000s.
Yes.
Style and fashion may change, the lingo may change, but you are still human, and you are still going through the human process that we all went through. We all remember 15 and 16, some basic things are insecurities, or if you're confident, you might be cocky, you know, to shield some other insecurities. We go through all the same emotions. So it's not really hard to write young people, you know?
Yeah, it's a great answer. Gentrification plays a big role in Pride. How do you approach writing about real social issues without losing the heart of a love story?
That was hard.
Yeah, yeah, I can imagine.
You know what? Actually, it's not hard for me. It was hard, but ultimately it's not hard for me to write because it'll be harder if I write romance without social issues. Because that's just the way I think. Like, I'm always thinking about the bigger picture. If two people are falling in love, what's keeping them apart? Other than misunderstandings? What are the societal things that are keeping them apart? What societal things are bringing them together? And I'm so glad that romance is big right now because there are other authors like Kennedy Ryan and Tia Williams who are like pairing love stories with social issues. So I didn't see much of that when I started writing this. So now there are way more people who are doing it, and you could find those books. You know, there are plenty stories like that.
So we know you grew up in Bushwick. The Benitez family dynamic feels so real, the way you wrote in the story. Did you draw from your own family or neighborhood experience?
So I was in Bushwick until I was 10. So I was like in those formative years, and I moved to Queens. But throughout all the neighborhoods I lived in, that dynamic is still the same. Like, they're like first generation and immigrant families. So it's like when you hold on to your culture, whatever it is, even if it's the culture of the South, the culture of New York, the culture of California, where there are certain things that you do to keep your sanity, right? Like coming to the library and just the social things that you do. That doesn't go away because of what's going on in the world. And I'm so happy for each one of you being in these seats because we know what's happening with libraries. We know what's happening with reading. So applaud yourselves for being here. I'm applauding you. This is like huge for me. Every time people come to a bookstore, I come to a library, an angel gets its wings. A book angel. So this is what ends up happening outside the home impacts the family inside the home. You bringing young people to book events really has an impact on what's happening, the safety and the joy in the home. So it really is just a reflection of what I saw in different communities that I lived in and what happens in my own home.
I love that. Were there any scenes from Pride and Prejudice that you were excited to reinvent in your own way?
Yeah, so little sister, man, I'm forgetting these names. Sorry, I'm going through the changes.
Lydia.
Thank you so much. Little fast one, right? And that's loaded. That's a loaded word for girls, right? And how do I remix that for the modern era, right? So if you didn't read the book, it had to do with phones, right? And social media. Not necessarily social media, like texting, you know? And I had to make it a way so that it's true to what a young girl would experience these days. And it has a lot to do with the way that we're communicating. So it wasn't necessarily fun. It was a challenge, but what was it was fun to try to think about how to modernize it, but definitely not fun to write because it's a sensitive issue. So, and thinking how to remix Mrs. Bennet and make her, she's kind of just this fumbling mother who's just like anxious about her daughters.
Yeah.
But how do I make her, in Bushwick and raising these 3 children? But she's sort of a matriarch who's nosy, who knows everybody's business. And she's a hot mess.
Yeah.
There's a scene where they go to a cocktail party across the street, and she's wearing her, it's very fancy. And Brownstone, Brooklyn, if you are, a Black family who can own a whole brownstone, there's a culture to it. There's maybe, if they're not like living in the mansions, what's the wealthiest neighborhood in Atlanta? What?
Buckhead, yeah. I was gonna say Buckhead, yeah.
Okay. Where are the mansions out? Buckhead? Okay. So, like, somebody who would live in Buckhead may not be the same family who lives in a brownstone in Brooklyn, right? You might not want to, somebody who owns a mansion may not want to live in a brownstone in the hood, right? Because it's still coming up. So you're upwardly mobile, but you're not too bougie. You're just like on the fence. But here comes Mrs. Benitez, who's from the hood, and she's coming up against like somebody who's not necessarily from the hood, but don't mind living in the hood, but only if they could have, some artwork on the wall. So the Darcys are moving in, not because they want to be in the hood, because they're getting in at the bottom floor, right? They're getting in because they know the prices are about to go up. And they did their research versus a family who've been there because they can't they can't leave.
Yeah.
They're not trying to buy a home because they don't have the resources. So you bring those 2 families together, what kind of conversations they're gonna have? So a cocktail party in a hood, she's gonna put on her best.
Yeah.
And her best might be Fashion Nova or whatever, or in New York we used to have these
Shein.
little stores. Shein too. But maybe she didn't go online. She went to the Avenue. She went to the store. So in New York, we have all these little Rainbow.
Rainbow, I was going to say, that's probably one, yeah.
She got her little shoes from Rainbow, and she's going to the cocktail party where the mom is probably wearing Zara, whatever,
Yeah.
I don't know would she be wearing Zara? She'd have a Chloe bag for sure.
Yeah.
Louis V. And I don't know where she get her clothes.
Yeah.
Where would she get her clothes from? Nordstrom? Okay.
Maybe, yeah, Nordstrom's probably more, but
high-end label.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to show, so I described some outfits in there. There are descriptions of clothes to show the class dynamic, what the mom is wearing. Maybe they summer in Martha's Vineyard, and the grandparents live in Maryland, in Prince George's County, Maryland, which is a wealthy county. And what do you say? How do you build community with somebody who doesn't know that world at all? So this is where the 2 characters start to bump heads.
Yeah, that's a good question. So Jane Austen's world revolved around social mobility and reputation. What do you think the modern equivalents of those pressures are for young people today?
Same thing.
Yeah.
Oh man, it has social media.
Yeah.
Makes it
It's a beast.
social media following. Right now is just how you present yourself. Everybody's face is on Front Street, and it is about what's behind a screen that doesn't necessarily reflect the real world. So I'm a little bit disconnected from like this generation, because I wrote these books before the pandemic, and some like Punch in the Air came out in 2020. And I have some YA books that have come out, but honestly, school visits have declined big time since the pandemic. And with all the book banning, I'm doing less school visits. So whenever I get an invitation like this one, I'm happy to jump on it.
Yeah.
I'm sorry I missed a school visit early. I really wanted to make it but I missed it because of flight delays. But I know 4 years makes a huge difference.
Yeah.
So I know a little bit about class of 2024, right? What year? Yeah, class of 2024, maybe class of 2025. But class of 2029, I don't know, y'all. I don't know the freshmen coming in,
Yeah.
what they're, because I was talking about the pandemic to like some high schoolers, and I'm like, oh, wow, y'all were in elementary school. So the whole thing is that I don't know what the concerns are, because I'm not spending as much time as I did pre-pandemic, because schools are doing less and less author visits. So I have to be intentional about putting myself in places where the young people are, so I could hear what the concerns are. And my husband is a high school teacher. So he
Nice.
tells me he's
Yeah.
25 years, he's about to retire, but he doesn't want to retire because he
No.
likes his job. But he's concerned. He has some huge concerns, in a way, not the same concerns as 10 years ago or 20 years ago. So we talk about what those concerns are, and he tells me, but I want to see it and feel it for myself. So I'm not sure what it is in this dynamic, if it's still socioeconomic, if it's socio-political, if, pretty privilege, or who's pretty, who's not, has a lot to do with it. So mental health is a huge thing.
Yeah.
So if I were to do a remix of anything classic, it would have to be one of those classics that deal with mental health.
Yeah. I was gonna say there's a lot of changes, like you said, post-pandemic, like where we're used to doing schoolwork on paper and things, like they're 100% computers now. It's like everything that they do, it's just everything has changed. So you're absolutely right. So I want to talk a little bit more about like your writing, your process, and just some of your personal insights. So you've written everything from YA novels to anthologies to children's books. How do you shift gears between audiences?
It's so easy for me.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's so easy. Middle grade is coming out in 2027. Adult, but it's not it's not announced. Oh, it's out there now. But fantasy, contemporary.
Yeah.
My last book, Skin, is now a finalist for the National Book Awards. And if you don't know what to thank you, National Book Awards is like the Oscars for books. So I got to put on a nice dress and do a red carpet and everything. And there are 5 finalists, and 3 of the finalists are Black women, which is the first. Hannah Sawyer with Truth Is, and Amber McBride with The Leaving Room. So check out those books, because the National Book Awards is like top tier, one of those things that, it's a highlight in your career, because you get to dress up and go see famous people or what have you.
That's amazing.
But that one is a fantasy in verse. So it's how my brain works.
Yeah.
It's trying to tell different stories in different ways. And it's the way that we watch movies too. I guess when you're watching something, you might watch a reality show, you might switch gears and watch a science fiction movie, and switch gears and watch a Tyler Perry movie. They're all very different.
Yep.
But if we can, consume all those different forms, and which I have, it's fairly easy for me to create those. Some people like to stay in the lane. I don't like that, because I was so boxed in when I was first getting published, because I'm an immigrant. People thought they'd get 10 different immigrant stories out of me.
Yeah.
No, you're not going to get that.
One and done.
I want to break out of the boxes that are placed around me.
I love that. So you collaborated with Yusef Salaam on Punching the Air. What did you learn from that partnership? And also, I want to know how that collaboration even came about.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Are you all familiar with Yusef Salaam? Exonerated 5. He used to live here in the Atlanta proper area. Then he moved back to his home in Harlem. He was accused of a heinous crime when he was 16 with 4 other young men. When They See Us is a Netflix documentary based on his story. I knew him in college.
Oh, wow.
So I met him he walked into my classroom, and this was before social media. And I remember his story because I'm a New Yorker. I was in the 6th grade when the Central Park 5 happened. And he walks into my classroom, and our professor was like, I know you didn't do it. And we were like, who is he again? And then we were like, wow, he's out. So, and I ran into him. He was selling his book of poetry. and he had not
Wow.
told his story yet. Like, if you would only know his story if you were in New York or you watched a Ken Burns documentary.
Yeah.
But this is before, When They See Us, he was working with Ava DuVernay to put the movie out.
Yeah.
And there was no book. I was like, all these social justice books, and your story
It's
is not out there.
Yeah.
And I was trying to get him to write it, but he was so busy. And I was like, you want me to write it? Work
Yeah.
with you? And he was like, because his mother and the women in his life were so pivotal in helping him through that dark time,
Yeah.
he, was more than proud to work with a woman to tell
Aw.
Amal's story. So it's a character based on him. So it's not about like the thing that got him in jail. It's more about the character coping with that process. And Yusuf was a poet and an artist while he was incarcerated. So
Wow.
that's why our character is a poet and an artist.
I love that. So cool. What does a typical writing day look like for you?
It's chaotic. If anybody's an aspiring writer or artist here, I have 3 children.
Okay.
They're 18, 20, and 22.
Okay.
I was a young mom. No, I'm just kidding. My support, I was, fairly young. And I've been with my husband for 25 years, and he's a huge support. So it's a writing any and everywhere. And I do write every day, and I wrote in the airport. But what keeps me going is that I don't write the same thing. That's another reason why. I can work on 3 books at the same time, but they're not all the same type of book. So I can't do 2 fiction books at the same time. So I'm working on 1 fiction, but 2 fictions really, but at different stages.
Yeah.
And then 2 nonfiction, actually 4 at the same time. 2 nonfiction, 2 fiction.
So if you're working on that many at a time, how long does it take you to finish from beginning to end?
Oh, that's wild. It could be a year or 2.
Okay. That's not too bad.
So while I'm waiting for notes on 1 fiction project, I'm working on, I'm drafting chapters for another fiction project.
Okay.
I'm drafting 1 nonfiction and researching the other. So that's how it's kind of just like I'm juggling at the same time.
Wow.
I'm neurospicy, as they say.
I love that. Who are some contemporary authors you're excited about or inspired by right now?
Oh, some of the writers who are younger than me who are so wise. I love wise people. Like, I love depth. I don't necessarily write books that'll fly off the shelves. I was the kind of teenager, give me the thickest book and I will be lost in those pages. Or as a young person, if all my friends are reading or listening to one thing, I'm let me find that one thing nobody's up on. That's just how my brain works, in that if it's something popular, I don't want it.
Yeah.
Until and I'll wait until it's not popular and I'll check it out. So it's not necessarily about popularity. It's about the young readers who are just looking for something different. I think sometimes I don't like when educators think all children want the one thing or what all kids are reading, because that made me invisible as a student when teachers say, my kids won't like that. And I'm like, did you talk to all of us?
Right.
So I write for that, that kid who doesn't see themselves in the mainstream, right? There may be the artist, your atypical student, but all students, but sometimes there's that quirky kid who's just are doing their own thing. So in that sense, I love Amber McBride. She has a book called Me Moth, which I love. Candace Illo, The Poets. I love The Poet X by Elizabeth Acevedo. Jason Reynolds.
Yes.
I love his presence in the field,
Yes.
in our industry. Jacqueline Woodson. I read most of her books before I started writing. There's so many of us. Renee Watson. Just know their names. If you're here listening to me, just know that there are authors who are doing similar work.
Yeah, love that. What advice do you have for maybe young readers or writers who want to kind of take a shot at writing their first book?
Read more than you write right now. Like, this is a good place to start. Honestly, like, oh gosh, there's so much distraction. And this is for, older people in the room, grown-ups in the room too, like me. There is so many benefits. There are so many benefits to reading. And it's, not just like what they used to tell us on Reading Rainbow on Sesame Street. It's like that too, but to counteract all the other stuff you're getting now. I didn't grow up with all this information coming at me in microseconds.
Yeah.
It's doing huge damage. And I'm sure you've seen the TikTok videos talking about how TikTok is no good. Reading is so important because this is where the secrets are. You want to know the secrets of the universe, and they're in books, honestly, in books. And it's not in any one particular book. It's you reading words on the page and coming up with your own resolutions while you're reading it. If you have questions, read a book, read any book, and slowly but surely you start to find the answers to the questions that you're asking. It's so important. Just 10 minutes a day, 20 minutes a day, shut out the world and fall into the pages of a book. And I also realized that you need to feel safe enough in the world in order to do that. So before reading, I feel like make sure you feel safe wherever you are so that you can zone out and read a book.
I love that. That's great advice. So I know you talked a little bit about future projects and that you couldn't really talk much about them, but can you tell us when they're coming?
I can tell you, but
Okay,
I love talking.
Yeah.
You won't find me, on the internet talking about mine. But right now, the next book is a fantasy based on Haitian folklore and mythology, Haitian Vodou mythology. That could scare people, but I just wanted to make a statement that all kids, everybody, there's a whole bunch of zombie books out there, zombie movies, zombie t-shirts, zombie clothes, Hollywood zombie books. Zombie lore comes from Haiti. And it wasn't the spooky flesh-eating kind. The first zombies were the enslaved Haitians on the field. That, the first movie was called White Zombie, set in Haiti in 1934. And this is the very root of zombie lore. It's not something scary. It's saying something about life and death and grappling with grief in a space where there's so much tragedy. So that book is called The Serpent, the Rainbow and the Island Below. And it's the lore of Haiti is one that examines the space between the living and the ones who have passed on, because Haiti's history is so traumatic and sad. If you understand the plight of enslaved people in any part of the world, the lore comes from that. Like, how do you build hope, tell stories of hope in the midst of so much tragedy? And a lot of those stories are mixed with West African folklore, native Taino folklore, and French and Irish folklore.
Wow.
And it is just as vast and deep as Egyptian mythology and Greek mythology. But because of how the media portrays Haitian, they make it very dark when it's the most beautiful thing I have ever seen.
Wow.
And it's the story of 3 children going on a quest to find their parents who have been taken by shadows to the underworld. And it's not, it's not sort of like Rick Roydian type stuff, because I write literary, so it's very literary. And my hope is that 12-year-olds, high schoolers, middle schoolers have context for what I'm writing. I don't want to be the only one writing a certain thing so that there's no context. And that's what I always bump into.
Yeah.
So I want people to read so they can read not just my books, but all the books out there, so that when I put out a book, you have context for those stories.
Awesome. I think I have one final question before we take some audience questions. If Pride was the first work of yours that the audience has read, if that's what they're here for, what would you recommend that they read of yours next?
So Pride is not my favorite book of mine. it's 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 my least favorite. And I want to be able to say that as an artist because I did not want to remix a classic. I wanted it to stand on its own.
Yeah.
And I wanted to just write a love story with two kids in the hood. And I could have still told the same story, a similar story, without calling it a remix. I could say so much about classics. And I could have expanded that world a little bit without the confines of the classic. I love what I did here, but if we're gonna, I don't say that about my children. I can say that about my books. So my favorite book is Nigeria Jones.
Okay.
It's different, but it is a heavy book. It's the book that I wanted to read as a 16-year-old. And it is a girl grappling with her separatist community, our militant community, and her father believes in his constitutional rights, including the Second Amendment, and the dangers of radicalism. When we think we are protecting a community or working for a community, who do we leave out in the process? So her father thinks he's doing work for his people, but here is a girl, she's like, what about my rights? So it's reproductive rights, maternal health crisis, womanism, Black radicalism, Black radical tradition, all set in Philadelphia.
Wow.
And it's framed within the Constitution. And I talk about the Quaker history in this country too. So it's my very nerdy book that I love. And it's the winner of the Coretta Scott King Award. And I say that because you always think like, nobody gonna get this book, nobody gonna get this book. And then it wins it award. It's like, oh, somebody got it. Thank God.
I love that. Thank you. Gina, you want audience questions? Anyone? Sure.
My name is Renata Dennis. I'm with the Jane Austen Society of North America.
Hey.
I can't believe that I got to meet Nikki Payne last week.
Oh, wow. And she wrote Pride and
Protest.
Yes.
I knew this week. So when Gina said you were coming, I said, you got her on Zoom, right? She said, oh no, she's coming. So we have a book box program where people, schools and libraries can write a grant, fill out a grant application, and get Austen-related books, and Pride is in the book.
Oh, thank you. Oh, did I shade Jane Austen? Sorry, no shade to no shade to Jane Austen, though. Yeah.
I'm so glad you
Thank you so much for the work that you do.
Sure.
Hello.
Hi.
What was the first book that you ever published?
The first book I ever published is American Street. So that came out in 2017. It's not the first book I wrote. I think it's like the 20th something book I wrote. And I tried to sell published books before that, but this is the kind of story that publishing wanted at the time, an immigrant story. So I'm glad because it opened up doors for me. Thank you so much.
Any other questions?
Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
So although that's not your favorite book. So in the beginning, when you're writing the book, you have a concept for your characters. But then when you sit at the table at the end with the editors and you're in the final stages, which character surprised you the most from Pride?
Oh, wow. You know what? They leave my characters intact. Sometimes what editors do for this particular book, I remember there are about maybe 20 or 30,000 words cut. So for me, what ends up, I remember writing different types of love. There was parts in the book where I was like writing my character was contemplating. It wasn't just a poetry. She was contemplating agape, familiar love, all the different types of love. This is my nerdy brain going at it. So that went on the cutting room floor. The editors were like, nah, they just want the story. So I had a great editor that I still work with who just gets me out of my nerdy brain to just tell the story. So the characters, I'm so glad that they trust me with the characters. They don't trust me with the content. And they always have to remind you don't lose the reader. So my editor is one of my first readers. So because I'm writing about Black characters, she trusts me with that content. It's just the story, presenting the story to the reader and what the reader will miss, what the reader needs to hold on to. So in my little, brainiac, way of presenting information, it's like cut the heavy stuff and get to the story for this particular book. Thank you for that question.
So the grandmother was interesting. She was shocking, and I thought she would come around. Did you have fun writing her?
Which grandmother? The bougie grandmother?
Yes.
Oh yeah. You know what? Lynn Whitfield was in my head the whole time. We've seen this character in so many of our movies where, like, give me bougie Martha's Vineyard type, And I love, I don't mean to shade Martha's Vineyard, but there is, just a Black excellence type of grandma. And I love her because, like, she sets a standard. At the same time, she's like only the best for my grandchild. And we know them, that's my mother, So I just wanted to be humorous and light, she's not heavy-handed, no, right? But I wanted to say something about classism, and I've already seen it. It's in my family, and it's in the media. So it wasn't hard for me to create her.
Any other questions? Oh, sure.
Hi, good evening. My name is Lachelle. Hi, Lachelle. I wanted to start by first saying, you're okay.
It's a New York thing.
So I'm also from Brooklyn.
Hi.
I wore my Brooklyn shirt today.
Okay.
So first, I wanted to just thank you for writing about Brooklyn, right? Every time I see Brooklyn stories, like in a book or just wherever, I see myself represented, and I like to imagine like how I would have been in that space. Also, for writing about Caribbean culture, my family is Jamaican, so every time I pick up a book and I'm like, "Oh, you from where? Okay, mija, da, da, da," like I don't know what. So, just Haitian culture, Dominican culture, just seeing that is so powerful. Because I think it really just amplifies like those voices, those stories, and I just think it's dope.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So also, like, in addition to just like talking about social issues, I think those are the books and the stories that I gravitate towards the most. And then hold on, I wrote stuff down, so I'm gonna forget. And then also just like what's happening in our society, but then weaving in like pieces of history and how characters navigate around those things. So even reading in this book about like the Santerias, right? My great grandparents were born in Cuba. So just like getting bits and pieces of those, even though that's not the whole story, just like infusing them. So that's cool. And thinking about gentrification, because I've seen it, I've gone back to Brooklyn. I live here now, but I go back to Brooklyn. I used to live right across the street from the Brooklyn Botanical Garden.
Oh wow! So Washington Avenue.
Yeah.
I lived around the corner on Crown Street.
Okay, I live Washington Crown Montgomery.
Oh wow! That brown building, right?
Yeah. So just going back, and I took my daughter and my husband, and I was like, "Yes, I'm gonna show y'all." Yeah. I went back and I was like, "What?" Something is a little bit different here. I think just in general, like we have strong feelings about gentrification of people from these neighborhoods, and I think when you start to read this book, if you follow Zuri, you have those strong feelings as well. But there's a part at the very end of the book where they move everything out, and she's looking at the walls, and she's like, "Oh, it is this cracked, and the paint is chipped," and then she goes to this new space, and she has like space to open her arms wide. And I just wondered if that reflection was commentary on the bright side of gentrification, or what the message is there, or do you want us to have a different perspective?
Thank you for that. And I want to add, Skin is set in East Flatbush, so it's Caribbean folklore. So thank you. That is a deep question, right? Because I'm going to end up saying it, right? You already said it, not me. They have to leave. And this was my reality too. No, you don't know what happened with them. I'm just saying. But it's true that we are moved out of those places that we live. I didn't want to tie it with a neat bow, like they stay in a 1-bedroom apartment forever, right? While she loves it, the story is told from her 16-year-old perspective. We don't know what her parents wanted. You know, maybe mom, Mrs. Benitez, wanted out. She's like, it's too crowded. Like, there are ways, you know, I didn't want to make it like Good Times, right? Where they trying to make it out the hood, they're like, damn, you know, we can't get out. It was just an endless cycle of never getting out the hood, never getting out the mud. And I wanted them to get out the mud, you know? And what does that look like? And it's true, and I'm sure it's true for Atlanta proper too, where you're forced to move out. And once you're forced to move out, is that the end all, a be all, right? And I don't want them to move out of a 1-bedroom apartment where the building is falling apart because they've been there for so long. Nobody's putting money into the spaces that they live. Do I have them move into another 1-bedroom dilapidated build, you know? So in this particular story, Canarsie is very far. Like, it's still Brooklyn, but it's the edge of Brooklyn on the other side where there's a little bit more space. So this happened to me. Oh, wow. I never really talked about this, but on September 18th, this came out 2018, and I had a book event that evening. And that morning, I was supposed to close on a house that I bought in East Flatbush, which is, I lived in Flatbush. East Flatbush had the semi-detached house. So publishing books allowed me and my husband to buy a home in a different neighborhood in Brooklyn with more space. That closing fell through that day. And I was so devastated. I was like crying before my book launch because we were ready to close that day. And we found out the family, the house was in foreclosure already while we were doing all the paperwork. And that was the third house we tried for. And our things were packed in storage. Like, it is like, you know, if you remember the end of A Raisin in the Sun, you know, that feeling of just like, we ready to go. What happened to the down payment? Oh no. That's how it felt. If anybody, and I know it has a different feel here in Atlanta, because when I moved down here, it seemed like you could get a house like this, you know? In New York, it's not like that at all. You're competing with like hedge funds for a house, you know? There's like so much competition for a house in Brooklyn. And we were so close, and it like fell through my fingers. And here I am putting out this book about a family who has to move out. Essentially, it's a love story too. And I'm going through it. And I just needed to stay in Brooklyn because it's like owning a home in downtown Atlanta, right? You know, you in a neighborhood that's going up and you about to get it and you're just like, I can't get it because somebody with cash is gonna, you know, get that family out of foreclosure and beat us to it. Eventually, I did not buy a home in Brooklyn. We had to move out to New Jersey. So this is also gentrification where you can afford to buy a house. You can, but you're competing with so many people and so many variables. So yes, there is a bright side because I didn't want to make it like out of the fire and into the fire pan kind of frying pan. So Canarsie is much further, they're further away from resources because it's in New York, it's what you call a two-fare zone where you got to take the bus to the train. Because you know about the subway, right? With New York, you can't just walk down a block and get the subway. If you can walk down a block and catch the subway, your apartment is $5,000, right? Or your brownstone is $3 million. So she's in a two-fare zone where she got to take the bus from the first stop to the last stop to get to the train. So there's more space, but here's what's happening to a lot of families. They're moved out further away from public transportation. So she's somewhat further isolated. So yes, there's the plus and minus sign. And that did happen to me where we're moving out. Brownstones are narrow and they're kind of like called railroad apartments where there are no windows on the sides and there's like windows in the front. So you could trap it. So families, struggling families, clutter starts to pile up, dust. If you're not careful, mold. The building falls apart really quickly. It adds to health issues. All these things could come up in New York City. I wanted to say all of that. And I said all of that in the end where she starts to see how like, wait, I've been living here all my life. Never has there been any renovations. What does that look like? It's like an old blanket that you take with you, but you don't realize it's falling apart and it smells, nobody washed it. That's what she's experiencing. And yeah, thank you for that because I thought about that. What's going to happen? Where are they going to move to? Is she going to move into a Harvard? The other side of it is a lot of the buildings that are going up. Some of the apartments are for lower income. They have to reserve a number of the apartments for lower income families, and there's a lottery for that. So I remember like, do they win a lottery and move into a high rise? Like, would that be like moving on up like the Jeffersons, right? And I'm like, what would be most likely more space for them? And where would they get more space? It would be a neighborhood in Canarsie or for East Flatbush or what have you. But Canarsie is closer to Bushwick. Thank you for that. I know I said a lot because you're going to get urban renewal like lesson on this book too.
Another one. Well, yeah, you can go first. Go. That's fine.
I just wanted to ask you, first of all, I'm glad that you got here safely. I know that you had a horrific travel getting here. I know, we missed you in Brookwood, so I was trying to get to that one earlier today, but I'm glad that you made it.
Thank you.
You're welcome. What is it, as looking around, I'm seeing all the scholars here, what nugget could you leave our scholars with today about writing and about being their true, authentic self in their journey to become a writer?
I'm going to say this till I'm blue in the face. Read, 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 read. You will see yourself reflected in a book before you see yourself reflected on the screen. It's like 100,000 times, So I think that it's to whatever it is that you want to do, you have to cultivate a love of learning. And it doesn't always have to be a self-help book or a nonfiction book. Fall into a fictional story the same way you would watch a movie. And it could be anything. It could be, you into graphic novels, read that. Romance, read as much as you can. I think on a very basic level, like reading regulates your breathing, right? And it's like healthy for your body because you get to pause for a second and you find yourself doing all those meditative things, like, breathing in, breathing out, calm your thoughts, and you just like relax. Even if it's like a thriller or a scary movie, like like maybe your heart beats a little bit, but for the most part, you are in tune with your body, your mind, your thoughts, your soul. And that will open doors because what it ends up doing is you're cultivating empathy for different people in the world. You building your vocabulary. There's things that you're doing while reading that you don't do while watching a movie. Your brain is working overtime. So it's problem solving in the real world too. So I could say some lofty things about follow your dreams, but at the very basic level, you training your mind for anything. You're preparing your mind for just about anything based on what you're reading and how often you read. And it doesn't have to be every day. It's like, hey, let me focus on this book for this week or for this month. I'm a slow reader because I indulge in reading sentences because I read as a writer. But if you are not a writer, if you're doing something else, please encourage, just like if you have young people in your life, let them see you reading. And it opens up pathways to every single thing right now. So I raised readers. My son did not read nearly as much as my daughters, but he's a critical thinker because of the conversations we had in the home based on our reading. And he's figured out what he wants to read. And it's not necessarily YA books. He likes reading spiritual books, like, and mythology books, but nonfiction. But even if he didn't read, his reading is not intimidating for him. So my daughter is at Howard right now. And she makes sure, like, she took all my books, a lot of my books, put them on the shelves. So much so that she has friends coming to her room to pick out books. So our love of literature, she took that from home and brought it to school with her. So I think that's the best thing that you could do right now, especially in this time. And if I wasn't a writer, I'd be a book influencer too. Because you're doing an amazing job.
Thank you.
But we need 100 more of you.
Yeah. They're coming though.
What I would want to see more of is like anyone to cover the history of Black children's books. I think right now, like, yes, it's great to focus on the books that came out, but there are some backlists.
I love backlists. Yeah.
Backlists that just need, like, run that back.
Yes.
Bring it back up, because I think so many of us can write to the trends, which is great. But there was a time, maybe, what were we writing about in the 70s? What was life like in the 70s? Let's not forget Walter Dean Myers and Virginia Hamilton and Rosa Guy. Bring in the same way that our kids are forced to read classics by writers who don't look like them. We have our own classics too. So I would love, like, if I were to get into it, I'd have like a throwback every day.
Yeah. About that. Sure.
Hi again.
Finish the book and went through the entire process, and they're like copying it. Did the eagerness ever get to you?
What was the last question?
Did the eagerness ever get to you when, like, they were making copies of all your books?
While they're
Printing
printing it?
Printing it?
Oh gosh, yes. I can't wait for my next book to come out, and I ain't even finished it yet. So since you asked that, so when I'm finished with a draft, I send it to my editor. I thought I was finished with this book last month, and I was like, just press print, we ready to go. And she was just like, nope, we're gonna have to push this back again because this needs more work. And I will get a 10-page editorial letter from her. And I have to, like, take my time and read it, because I'm mad at her after the first day. I'm like, you didn't get it. You didn't read. Did you even read this book? And after 1 week, I'm like, all right, you right. And then another week, I'm like, oh yeah, I'm gonna change this whole thing because you are absolutely right. So revising is the hardest thing for me. So at this age, you probably write something and you think it's the best thing since sliced bread, but somebody's gonna read it and be like, I don't get it. I don't get what you're saying. And then you have to make sure that you're clear in your writing. Revision is hard. Then you revise it, then the editor says it's good to go. Then you get something called a copy edit. A copy edit is somebody not just checking the grammar, but they're fact checking. Like, somebody has to read your book and say, your character is wearing white sneakers in chapter 2, and all of a sudden they wearing tap dance shoes in chapter 7. When you didn't show it, so they're looking for continuity. And that happens in movies too, so that if you shoot a movie that takes place over a course of day, but it took you 2 months to shoot, you gotta have continuity. So a copy editor does that. And sometimes there's 2 or 3 copy editors going through it with a fine-tooth comb. That is annoying. And sometimes when they don't get your vernacular, like little things like, should there be a G here? Like, one of the things is like, no, it's a double negative. Always keep the double negative, So now they get it. You know what I'm doubling, we do double negatives. So they have to check for all the grammar and the spelling, then there's formatting, and then there's the cover illustrator, the design. There's 2-3 people who worked on this cover.
Wow.
There was the illustrator, and then the person who designed this, then the person who designed the lettering,
Wow.
then the person who designed in the actual text in the book.
Yeah.
So there's like 20 people who work on a book, and I just gotta wait until they're done. And you know what I do while they're waiting? What do you think I do while they're waiting?
Writing on another book.
Yep.
Working on one of those other 4 books.
Yep.
right? Yeah.
Working on the next one. As soon as a book leaves me, I'm on to the next.
One last question.
I want to thank you for your presence, and I appreciate your candidness. The young man asked part of my question. What do you do to detach from a story once it's like complete, like you're done with it? What do you do to detach yourself from those characters, that story, even though you have all these other ones going on too?
I don't. It's not healthy. I'm still thinking about my book, which is up for an award. So I'm still thinking about how it's like, once I found out it was long listed, I went back to read it because I'm like, what they see? What did they write? What is it that made it worthy of that? And then I'll revisit it again when I feel stuck in my current book and say, how did I do that again? Because it's easy to forget. So I don't detach myself from any of the characters. I still hold on to the characters in Pride. I revisited this book to write Skin because I have to remember, how did I write Brooklyn? How did I convey Brooklyn? And for Skin, I revisited American Street because how did I write about a immigrant girl? So they all live in me. Like it is like your children, where you don't forget anything about them and you just remember aspects of them. And for my books, I remember aspects of the stories to help me write the next one. Thank you so much, everybody. These were great questions. I really appreciate every one of y'all.